We are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 18 of season 2, I have a few quick shout outs, housekeeping, some would say. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. If you like today's episode, hit that thumbs up button. We got a lot of fun talking points for you coming up, so make sure to stay tuned and to hit that thumbs up button. If you want to be the first to know when Revved Up 906 posts on YouTube, you can click the link on our YouTube profile, not the link rather, but the bell, and that bell will give you all post notifications whenever we are uploading clips or episodes to our YouTube channel. So make sure to hit that bell button. Also, if you aren't so much into long form content, but you like our podcast, make sure to follow on Instagram and to still subscribe, because you can watch our YouTube reels and our Instagram reels, where they are basically 25 to 30-second clips that are basically the highlights of each and every episode. And so it's a great way for you to still be in tune with everything going on with the Detroit Pistons without having to watch our long form 30 to 40-minute videos. Also, our official merch sponsor is Grind Clothing Co. As you guys know, each and every episode, I'm wearing our polo. So you can find this if you click the link in our YouTube bio to grindclothingco.com. We have many more designs of hats, beanies, sweatshirts, quarter zips, t-shirts, and polos. So make sure to rep your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, Revved Up 906. Also, some exciting news. Ryan and your boy are taking a trip to 313 area code. We're going to Detroit very, very soon. We're going to be there March 14th through the 18th for the matchups, back-to-back matchups, rather, of the Miami Heat versus the Detroit Pistons. So get ready for some Instagram content, YouTube vlogs, and recordings from Detroit, Michigan. So make sure to go follow us on Instagram. That link is below in the description below and in our YouTube bio. Get ready for just some fun content. We did it last year and we had a blast. So we're looking forward to watching these two matchups against the Miami Heat. We will also be at the Red Wings game. So we're fitting it all in, touring Comerica Park. You can look forward to seeing all those little details in our vlogs coming up very, very soon. So make sure, if you're in the Detroit area or you're traveling, make sure to tune in and say hi to your boys at the Pistons games. We're looking forward to that little quick trip. Guys, without further ado, let's get into episode number 18 of season 2. And something that's consistent with the Detroit Pistons these last 3 seasons, Ryan, is drama. And it has held up with the Pistons. We just recently had a bunch of trades at the trade deadline, and then Isaiah Stewart with his altercation with Drew Eubanks. And then most recent, the Pistons losing to the New York Knicks in a tough loss, bad calls. And Ryan, we're going to highlight that situation, that Monty Williams press conference and everything in today's episode. But really what we're going to highlight today is, when will the Pistons finally get respect from the NBA? And the reason why this is so prevalent is because of that missed call against the New York Knicks with Asar Thompson and Dante DiVincenzo. But Ryan, to kind of start this discussion, I want to answer a couple quick questions that will ultimately answer when the Pistons will finally get respect. And to start it off, the biggest blatant standout when looking at the Pistons organization in, let's say, the last 15 years is missed and mishaps in our draft prospects, the guys that we've drafted. We've made some big mistakes. Do you think that's why the Pistons have lost some respect throughout the league? Because it doesn't just impact what happens on the court, but it also impacts what happens within a franchise. It kind of shows like, oh, what's going on with this GM and Stan Van Gundy? What are these miscues happening through the draft? Is that's what affected the Detroit Pistons and why they've kind of lost respect?
Well, when you look at it, you go often to the times of, well, look at who they drafted. Sekou Doumbouya, one of the most recent picks. I at the time I'm like, oh, did we just get the mini Giannis?
Yeah, me too.
We did not get the mini Giannis. I wish we didn't. And then you even have like Henry Allenson. He was getting
Yep.
talked about as being like the next Dirk Nowitzki. He's not the next Dirk. There has been countless players drafted in the
Yeah.
Gundy years, Van Gundy the years there, and then even most notably, most recently in Killian Hayes. That
Yep.
was a missed pick because everybody talks about it. We passed up on Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese thought he was coming to Detroit. We dropped
Hmm.
Killian Hayes. It's happened since the beginning until now. You could even go as far back as the Carmelo Anthony draft and the mishap where we didn't draft him and instead we drafted Darko Milicic.
Right.
Ever since that point till now, we've had so many misses in the drafts that it gets to the point where it's like, okay, we're going to lose respect in terms of drafting quality players on that side of the things. But those quality players that we could be getting in these drafts correlate also to wins. And if you're not getting good players year in and year out throughout the draft, on top of free agency and any trades that you make during the season and off season, if you're not getting good quality players, you're gonna lose games. That's the bottom line. If you're not getting the quality players at the end of the day, you lose games. And the last couple of years have been on the better side for us in
Right.
terms of
Absolutely.
drafting quality players. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, just all good examples of good quality players that we've gotten through the draft. With that being said, if we can continue that into the next couple years or so, then it's starting to become like, oh, they're drafting, they know how to draft. These players are just needing to mix a little bit more, and then they'll start winning. So I really think it is if we can draft quality players on a consistent basis from here on out, we'll get more respect in that regard. But overall, what correlates to respect is winning. If we don't win games, it's not going to matter. Because like the
Right.
Knicks game, that happened, right? We Everybody in the NBA community, even if you're a Pistons fan or not, and you've been hating on them all season long, just because of the losing streak, the historic runs, whatnot, you've been bashing them. Here now, everybody's all together going like, yeah, the Pistons just got rigged. Like that game was rigged in the New York Knicks' favor. Pistons should have won that game. What the heck was that call? And that really comes down to, at this point, who cares? Because the NBA is not going to change their perspective or their call, rather, and side with the Pistons, and all of a sudden the Pistons win that game. They've never done that in any game situation. They've just made out a statement saying, yeah, we were incorrect. We'll do better next time. But when is next time? And that goes down to respect. And if we can't draft quality players on a consistent basis, I'm not saying drafting is necessarily the key to getting or gaining the respect, but rather if we're not getting those quality players, we can't have successful teams and go on successful runs.
Well, and I think what stems that thought for me is I look at teams like the Miami Heat, for example. They have done really well through the draft historically, even with when they had the big three of LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, whatever, they still drafted D Wade. And if you look at most recent history, they've drafted guys like Bam Adebayo, 5 years ago. And then they drafted Tyler Hero, who has become a big success. And then most recently this year, Jamie Jaquez. They've made some really good moves through the draft. So for me, and the Miami Heat are a very well respected team in the NBA, as most people know, right? They're held in very high regard. So for me, that's what I kind of look at through the lens of like these teams that are known historically to do well through the draft. And you look at the prestige that they're held under every year. They're in the playoffs. They're making these deep runs, always flirting with possibly, is it the year to win a championship? And so for me, the biggest historical thing with the Pistons is there's two things. There's losses and then there's bad draft picks. And so like those things two co-align very closely, as you were pointing out. And winning overall is what's going to get you respect. So what I kind of want and what the Pistons have kind of done these last 3 years, with the exception of Killian Hayes and Isaiah Livers, arguably, is they've done well throughout the draft process, getting guys like Isaiah Stewart, that's, I think, respected throughout the league as a tough, hard nosed guy. And then you got Cade Cunningham, that's respected as this skillful savant. And then you have Jaden Ivey, that's respected by a lot of aggressive and athletic veterans, point guards in the league right now. So I think that the Pistons are slowly starting to turn this corner and gaining respect with some of the guys they draft. It just hasn't completely correlated yet. But that was just something I thought, like, okay, how much does a draft correlate to the respect the Pistons have lost? Because you look at a guy like Stanley Johnson, we talk about him a lot, especially earlier when we started the podcast. He was a respected guy coming out of Arizona. Everyone in the draft knew him. Everyone is a little scared of him. Like, oh no, this guy could go off or whatever. He was really highly touted as a just juggernaut. But then he comes to a league and puts up a goose egg. Well, once you start drafting a couple guys that are doing this, that's when you're like, oh, those Detroit, whatever. You lose that respect of these former highly touted players just losing it when they go to Detroit. And then sometimes people think that they lost their mojo because they went to Detroit. And then once you start getting those negative thoughts, that's when NBA franchises and NBA players and the organization workers and everything like that, the opposing GMs start losing their respect in Detroit. And I think it's going to start through the process. And I think the Pistons are turning the corner overall with this new era of Troy Weaver. It's just going to be a slow process. The next question I wanted to cover is let's start talking about this New York Knicks missed call, and let's kind of dig a little deep into this. But generally, overlooking this whole topic of the Pistons not getting calls, where do you think that stems from? Is it stemming from the players not being able to sell these fouls? Is it the refs simply not respecting the Pistons? Is it the refs thinking that the Pistons play sloppy, and so the Pistons put themselves in these bad, physical, not elegant play? Where do you think these missed calls are stemming from, specifically with the Pistons? Because it's a common thing we've been seeing all this season, are Pistons just simply not getting calls when the opposing teams are.
Yeah, what I think it is, it's not necessarily like, oh, the Pistons aren't selling these calls or they're not doing this and that. What I think it is the NBA likes to promote their successful products. And the New York Knicks is, to them, they view it that way. I don't view it that way. They view it as, right, the Knicks are a successful product. They want to promote it. You go the Knicks, the Lakers. Obviously, the Lakers are going to be one of those teams no matter what. But the Knicks, Lakers, Clippers now, Bucks with Damian Lillard now, and so on and so forth. They're wanting to promote their products. And New York winning a close game at the end, pulling it out, coming back and winning it, they want that to happen because in their sense and mind is, wow, look at that highlight, because that highlight's been shown everywhere ever since that missed call there. And there's a lot of people in the community going like, crap, the Pistons just got screwed over. But then there's some people that are seeing that going like, as Knicks fans, wow, we just won that game. We shouldn't have won it, but we won it. And so I really see it as a marketability standpoint. What is the marketability there? And the New York Knicks are a successful team right now. They're going to make the playoffs. It's going to make the NBA more money. And so these refs they know like who the successful teams are. They know how much, just the revenue that is behind these teams. And I'm sure there's a couple bonuses here and there that they can receive going throughout the season. I'm not saying that the game is rigged. The NBA is going to pay the refs more just for a certain game. But the point is, like, these NBA officials know these are the teams that the NBA is trying to promote right now. Let's make sure these guys win a game. And that goes as far as who's the star player. Well, Jalen Brunson is considered a star player amongst a lot of people in the NBA. He is not a star player. He's overrated. But that's not the point. What I think it stems from in this situation is the fact that you look at the Pistons record. They're 8-49 right now. They're 9-49 rather. Yeah, 9-49 right now. And they're not gonna obviously they're not gonna have a winning season. They're not gonna make the playoffs. This You're not sitting there going like, oh my goodness, I want to turn on a Pistons game. You're sitting there going, I want to turn off the Pistons game. And the Knicks in that situation, it's must watch basketball. So what I really think this stems down to is the fact that the Pistons suck right now. The Knicks are on a hot roll, gonna make the playoffs, gonna make the NBA more money. So let's make sure we get the benefit of the doubt to them rather than the Pistons. And it's been going on all season long, not just the Pistons. The Toronto Raptors are a key example. But then there's other teams on the lower end of wins that are in the same boat. They're not getting the respect that they deserve because they're going out there and they're working their tails off. The Washington Wizards are not one of them, but that's not the point again. The point is like these Pistons players are competing every single night. They're giving it their all. And it's not like they're getting blown out by 30 points. It's majority of the time it's a 10-point game at most. Otherwise, it's a 2-point game. That's it. But the teams that are not successful right now in the league are not getting respect just because the NBA is currently trying to promote their best products. And that's what it comes down to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. The Knicks, when you look at it, you break it down, the numbers, the viewing numbers, the Instagram likes, all of it's going to correlate to a bigger number for the New York Knicks, and that's going to generate more revenue for the NBA overall. His NBA fans overall, just like the normal guy that's scrolling on Instagram and watches NBA clips, isn't going to be as geeked to watch the Detroit Pistons win a game over the Knicks. They want, everyone wants to see the bully win every battle. And the best way to kind of show how this works is I work in sales, people. I understand. You want to sell the good inventory, the little bit more expensive inventory rather than the cheaper inventory. Now, us as Pistons fans, it's hard to understand because we love our beloved blue, red, and white. We love our Detroit Pistons, but overall in the NBA, it's a business, and the New York Knicks are going to be able to generate more money. Why would you sell the Ford Mustang and not the Bugatti or whatever the correlation is? Now, we think the Pistons are a Bugatti, but all those higher ups in, the Empire State Building or wherever NBA headquarters are, they're worried about what's going to generate money. And right now it's the New York Knicks. I think one day the Pistons will be able to generate a lot of money for the Pistons, much like the Lions are doing for the NFL right now. But the Pistons just aren't there yet. So it's hard to watch as Pistons fans because we're like, how could a ref be that biased? Because just because the refs assume that they're going to make all the better plays in the Pistons, that's another thing that I kind of think about at times is the refs just sometimes assume the Knicks, because they're a better team, over 500 playoff caliber team, are going to make the right plays because the Pistons suck that bad. And that's another thing that upsets me is this Pistons team. They're young, they're learning, they're trying, they're putting in an effort, and they're competing. The refs are the biggest factor why they didn't beat the Magic, why they haven't beat the New York Knicks, and so on and so on and so on. All the examples we've seen this season. So it's a little bit frustrating, but Ryan, to kind of further this conversation, I wanted to talk about Monty Williams a little bit because we saw him come out in the recent press conference after the Knicks game, just absolutely livid. We actually watched that game together, and as soon as Monty started kind of ranting, we stopped talking and just like watched the TV for like 30 seconds. We're like, oh no, what's about to go down here? He was livid. He wasn't happy. And he made it well known that the Detroit Pistons have reached out to the NBA and have cut up clips, written out letters, and sent the clips with the letters and the quotes from the coaching staff and more than likely players. So this is something that the NBA is very aware of, has addressed with referees, and this mistake is continuing to happen. And then now finally it took the last straw of Isaiah Thompson just getting absolutely trucked like he just got trucked. So what I like about this Monty Williams quote that I'm about to read for you is I think it adds respect to the Detroit Pistons. And I think that's another huge reason we went out and got Monty Williams, because he started to build this prestigious resume with the Phoenix Suns of building them up, making a championship caliber team. And then the Pistons were like, we want a respectful coach like that. We want a respected coach. And they went out and got Monty Williams, and now he's giving great quotes like this to the NBA. And I'm going to read this quote from Monty Williams that is building this. He's trying to build this respect for the Detroit Pistons from every one of his peers and all the referees and the organization, or the association rather. Quote, "We're sick of hearing the same stuff over and over again," end quote, Williams said. Quote, "We had a chance to win the game and a guy dove into Asar's legs and there was no call. That's an abomination. You cannot miss that in an NBA game," end quote. Now, I'm sure most of you guys heard that, but I kind of wanted to read it over again just for those who possibly missed it, and to kind of solidify this point that once the Pistons receive respect from the NBA, Monty Williams is going to be a huge part of that process, because I know Monty's the kind of guy, when he speaks up, all ears point his way. They're all paying attention. So I think this was a huge move by Monty, because he's not the type to say something unless it's necessary. Ryan, your thoughts on Monty Williams' quote and what it kind of did to gain respect from his peers and the association from that quote?
So for me, first off, I applauded Monty Williams for making that statement, because if he went in there and was like, yeah, my players should have boxed out better, we didn't execute in the final minutes, that's why we lost the game, I would have been like, oh, Monty, why did you go with the generic response?
Agreed.
But he goes out and makes a bold statement, pretty much targeting the NBA, targeting the officials, and going like, hey, this is not right. Something needs to change. And then the fact that he quoted himself by going, hey, we've sent in clip after clip after clip. We've sent in a lot of notes saying like, hey, something needs to happen here. Why isn't anything happening? Why isn't anything taking place? The NBA with their officials, they have it set up in their program that you ref a certain amount of games, you're respected among your peers in terms of officials, and you work your way up into higher end games. So like you're going to be reffing the NBA finals one year, and you just build your resume on there. It gets to the point where these lower end officials that don't have the experience, they're just slowly working their way up in their NBA careers as officials. They're the ones calling a game like that. They don't have the experience there. And now I'm not going like, hey, officials, you're okay. You're all in the clear. That's not in the clear when you're missing a call that blatantly obvious. Mm-hmm. The crew chief of that officiating staff that night was right at the scene of the crime. He was right in front of the play where it happened. And he's the one that publicly made a statement post-game, not even a minute after the game ended, and said, yeah, a call should have been made there. Dude, you were right in front of the play. You're the head official on the staff, and you're not making that call, and you're blaming the rest of your staff? Like, come on. Like, that's my big pet peeve in that situation. But this goes back to the NBA is going to want to promote their products. They're going to want to promote their successful products. The Knicks are a successful product. In that situation, of course, the refs are going to side with the Knicks. But it irks me, because the crew chief, the one who literally makes the statement post game, if you go back and watch the tape, he was right there staring it down. What happened right in front of him. Mm-hmm. And in that situation, that was not a basketball play. That was a football play. Mm-hmm. That was a player, and Dante DiVincenzo, he's not a dirty player. He's not. I'm throwing that out there because a lot of people don't know him. He's not a dirty player. That's not normal for him. But it's New York basketball, so who cares? But the point is, he was not making a play on the ball. He was making a play on Asar Thompson. Asar Thompson gained control of the ball. had a right of way to the ball and got taken out from the knees. That is not allowed. That is a loose ball foul. Not even a loose ball foul. You could even tee him up for that. That should not have taken place. And there is no situation ever where that should be a part of the game of basketball, because it is a dirty play. And now I know this may go as to, oh, Ryan, you're making that statement because the NBA's gone soft. No, even in the bad boy era, something like that taking place, you'd be shooting free throws. You'd have the ball back, game over. The point is, this can't happen and shouldn't happen. And it's been happening all season long with the Pistons. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon until we finally start winning games. And that's the sad thing of it all, is no matter what these teams that are on the lower end of the NBA in terms of marketability standpoint and winning games, if they're not winning games, they're not getting calls. And the NBA needs to be better at that. They can't just have the crew chief post game saying, "Yeah, we should have made a call. We're gonna fix that for next time," and then not do it. You got to execute in those situations. So what I think the NBA needs to do into making this step and maybe creating a change is they need to start fining the officials. If they miss a call like that, that's blatantly obvious, that changes the outcome of a game, fine them. Make sure they don't make that mistake again, because these officials will make they will make the right call at the end of the day. If they screw up, they lose money. They don't want to do that. They don't want to lose money. So fine them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even if it was to the effect of a 3-game suspension where for 1 week they do some reffing classes. I don't know how that works, but I'm sure there's like precaution videos that they watch or things, they get notices of things to watch for. I think that would be kind of a benefit, at least like a week suspension or something like that, maybe where they're still getting paid, but they have to take these extra classes or however they go about it, or trainings. I think that would be pretty cool, or very close by to these chief ref leads, maybe they travel with them for a week and kind of have to take these certain sessions. I'm not sure, but I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to have some kind of precautionary discipline to hopefully minimize these missed calls, because refs have to be locked in. I don't care if it's Pistons versus the Spurs, the worst matchup in the NBA, it doesn't matter. You have to make the right call, or otherwise AI or some robot's going to be taking over for these refs that don't make mistakes. Y'all better stop making mistakes. You're going to get replaced. So that's my biggest thing. Make a change. Make something happen where the refs feel the heat a little bit, because NBA players know to stay out of trouble, because if they don't want to be fined, they know that they have to stay away from the heat if they don't want to get burned. Well, the refs maybe need something like that too, because that's when people overall do best, and choose to do the right thing, or when they're most locked in. So, Ryan, before we wrap up today's episode number 18, realistically, when do you see the Pistons regaining the respect of the NBA? Because that's the overall question, right? We talked about, okay, maybe respect can be rebuilt through the draft. Okay, winning can be, gaining respect can be gained through winning games against like the New York Knicks and all these premier NBA teams. Realistically, timeline, thought, who's on the team, all these types of things, when we talk about the NBA finally having respect again for the Detroit Pistons?
For me, it comes down to identity. What is your identity? We right now, as an organization, we don't have one. I hate to be that mean. We don't have one. And it sucks for me to say, because you're going like, you have your cornerstone player in Cade Cunningham. You have a good quality core with Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and throw like Isaiah Stewart in the mix. Throw Asar Thompson if you want into the mix there. But with all that said, we still don't have an identity. And like, you look at these trades that transpired. You go back to the offseason where we made all these moves. We acquired Monte Morris, pretty much giving up absolutely nothing to get him. We were bringing a veteran player that we're going like, yeah, we can do something with this. Same thing with Joe Harris. And then you see this season how it goes, and you're going like, what the heck? This team is worse than we were last year, but we have better players. And then you make all those trades. You acquire somebody from Fontecchio, Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, etc. And you're sitting there going like, okay, where is this going to go? They actually did make a change. Is that going to benefit the team? And so far, I think it has. But with all those moves, and even go back to offseason, we still don't have an identity. Did these players coming in really help us and benefit the team for the future? I don't know. That's still to be seen because the way the season's going to end, we're going to lose games. So my thing for me personally is this upcoming draft. What do you do? Because as great as Asar Thompson has been at times, there's still a ton of space to grow because he still doesn't have a three-point shot. He had that one couple threes versus the Knicks and couple threes versus the Magic were in the Bulls that were solid, but he still has a lot of room to grow. He is great defensively. He's not great offensively. And so this next draft, you have to be drafting somebody that can really help turn around this team. And then if not, Troy Weaver is under the microscope because this team really doesn't have an identity. And that needs to be established going forward in order for us to even talk about respect or even having success. Because respect is earned when you know that a team has an identity, they can win games, and they can draft well. And then if not, they also have to be able to hit the free agent market with a splash and get some good quality players out of that too. So my thing is they need to earn or rather create an identity going forward in order for respect to finally be given to them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You have to have a good enough roster and a good enough chemistry to have an identity. I completely agree. And for me, when I'm talking about like who I respect as teams, I think you have to reach a conference finals for me to get my respect. I think I really respect teams like the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, teams that just kind of always find themselves in these conference finals. Those are teams that I'm most like, oh, great, we gotta play these guys tonight, or whatever it might be. That's usually who I respect the most. But I agree with you. I think it starts with identity because once you have an identity, then you start winning games. And then once you start winning games, that's when the hardware starts coming in. And that's when these playoff series won and these over 500 seasons start happening and start racking up. And so I think we're right on the same page there. That will do it for episode number 18 of season 2. We talked about when will the Detroit Pistons get the respect from their NBA peers. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in episode number 19. Peace.